All right, y'all, welcome to the show. Holy cow, do we have an amazing one for you today. So in just a second, Trump's Iran war is already failing miserably. Wait until you hear all the updates. This stuff is wild. So we'll talk about that. We also have MAGA immediately bends the knee, immediately falls in line, and goes full warmonger like the little cucks they are. I got a bunch of evidence on that front for you. Then we'll talk about the mainstream media idiots who are frothing at the mouth for war. We'll talk about the independent media idiots and losers who got Trump spectacularly wrong from the beginning. And then we'll also get into anti-war protests exploding across this country. We have Trump going nuclear on Thomas Massie, trying to get him kicked out of Congress for standing up to him. We have Bernie's audience and Bernie himself learn in real time about the illegal war that Trump just launched. Wait until you hear their reaction. And then later on, a MAGA spokesperson says the quiet part out loud about Israel. And this is a clip for the history books, y'all. That's what it is. So, by the way, subscribe to the channel. If you're not, it helps out massively, costs you nothing. You could also click that bell icon so you get a notification every time a video drops. Thank you to everybody who supports this show on Patreon. We couldn't do it without you. This is real independent media. And so subscribe to Crystal Kyle and Friends if you're not yet. We had a great big debate with Cenk Uygur the other day. There's a lot of awesome stuff we have coming up for you there, so you don't want to miss anything there. And go subscribe to Corin's World, the YouTube channel, because that's where we're dropping Kyle and Corin episodes, and you don't want to miss any of those. We haven't missed a week yet since we started posting it on his channel. All right, guys, so let's go ahead and dive into it. So, as you all know, Donald Trump decided to launch an illegal and offensive war against Iran, a country that didn't attack us. He attacked their 3 main nuclear sites. Now, by the way, total catastrophe. In fact, they, in terms of succeeding with the mission, they failed across the board. So more on that in a little bit. But before we even heard from Trump, we heard from Benjamin Netanyahu first, which is kind of dark and ominous in and of itself, isn't it? This guy addressed the American people before Trump did. So here we go. Let's dive into it and we'll break it down.
Congratulations, President Trump. Your bold decision to target Iran's nuclear facilities with the awesome and righteous might of the United States will change history. In Operation Rising Lion, Israel has done truly amazing things.
Operation Rising Lion. I can't, man. I can't. He knows how to play Trump like a fiddle, right? He just comes out and heaps fawning praise on Trump, which is going to do what? It's going to incentivize Trump to do more of exactly what Netanyahu wants him to do.
But in tonight's action against Iran's nuclear facilities, America has been truly unsurpassed. It has done what no other country on earth could do. History will record that President Trump acted to deny the world's most dangerous regime the world's most dangerous weapons. His leadership today has created a pivot of history that can help lead the Middle East and beyond to a future of prosperity and peace.
It's incredible. The guy who's literally actively doing a genocide is talking about how Trump's new war will bring about peace.
President Trump and I often say, peace through strength. First comes strength, then comes peace.
So, in other words, after he wipes out every single Palestinian on the face of the earth, then he'll bring about peace.
President Trump and the United States acted with a lot of strength. President Trump, I thank you. The people of Israel thank you. The forces of civilization thank you.
Ugh.
God bless America. God bless Israel. And may God bless our unshakable alliance, our unbreakable faith.
Jesus Christ, that is so dark. Again, we heard from him before we heard from Trump. That's wild. All right, I got another one for you. So here's what Trump said. This is after the attack, of course. He says, any retaliation by Iran against the United States of America will be met with force far greater than what was witnessed tonight. Thank you, Donald J. Trump, President of the United States. So all caps, of course. Look, the reason he's saying this is because it's all kayfabe. It's all part of the game. They knew when they attacked Iran's nuclear sites, Iran will have no choice but to respond. And then when Iran responds, Netanyahu and Trump will do what the actual goal was, which I've been warning you from the beginning, which is regime change. In fact, Trump also came out and acknowledged, yeah, ultimately, I want regime change. By the way, that made his VP look stupid. That made his Secretary of State look stupid. That made all of his little sycophantic MAGA influencers look stupid, because the argument a lot of them ran with was, bro, this is definitely not regime change. It was just taking out their nuclear sites and that's it, bro. We're not trying to do regime change at all. And then within an hour, Trump is out there like, regime change, that sounds awesome, doesn't it? All right, so more. Here's some details of the strike. A U.S. official said that 6 B-2 bombers dropped a dozen 30,000-pound bunker buster bombs on the Fordo nuclear site. Wow. Wow. Jesus Christ. 30,000-pound bunker buster bombs. they dropped a dozen of them, which lies deep underground, and Navy submarines fired 30 TLAM cruise missiles at the Natanz and Isfahan sites. One B-2 also dropped 2 bunker busters on Natanz, according to the official, who spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss military operations. So they threw the kitchen sink at these places. Now, here we go. This is the BBC Verify guy here. He says, new high-resolution satellite images released by Maxar Technologies show damage to 3 Iranian nuclear sites targeted by the U.S. last night. Before and after images taken on 16 and the 22nd of June show damage to multiple buildings at the Isfahan Nuclear Technology Center. So here you can see, this is one of the before pictures, and then the after picture looks like this. So you can see that there were definitely some attacks here, some attacks here. Let me show you the other one, another before picture, and then we have another after. And you could tell that they went to town and they bombed a lot. Now, at the same time, you might be looking at this and thinking, I don't know, I would have imagined there would be more damage based on the kind of weapons that the U.S. use. Well, that's an interesting point, because wait until I show you Fordo. This is their main nuclear site, which is in a mountain way underground, okay? Ready? This is wild. So they called it Operation Midnight Hammer. Here's the before picture. You just see like a mountain range, right? Here's the after picture. Yeah. I'm not an expert with stuff like this, but that doesn't look like there's all that much damage. In fact, here, let me zoom in a little bit. So do you see these three little like dots here? That is where the bunker busters hit and went underground. By the way, I should also point out that a bunch of people are sharing a video of what they say is the bombing. It is not of this bombing. There's some old video of like Ukraine bombing a Russian weapons depot or Russia bombing a Ukraine weapons depot, and there's this massive explosion, and people are sharing that as if it was the attack on Fordo. It's not. This is the attack on Fordo, and the bunker busters obviously go underground. But in terms of, damage that you can see, I gotta be honest, y'all, this is really a lot less than I was expecting, right? And I love this comparison. I need to shout out to Evan, who posted this. Is the meme, the before and after of Alex Jones. I don't even know what product he was doing this for, but the before is him like looking kind of pale, and the after is him looking like a little bit red/tan, but like he looks exactly the same. And that's what Fordo looks like. That's what Fordo looks like. So, by the way, your guess as to, I don't know, did this really achieve the goals of what Trump was trying to do? The answer is no. I'll have more on that in a little bit, but the answer is no. The idea that this place is totally cooked and that their ability to make nuclear weapons is now gone and they don't have the capacity and all that all horseshit. Like, none of that happened. Now let me show you this. Rolling Stone had this report. There is no intel. Trump's attacks on Iran were based on vibes, sources say. So in other words, when Tulsi Gabbard was in that committee hearing and she testified that Iran is not building a nuclear weapon, there's no evidence of that. And then that was brought up to Trump. And Trump was like, she's wrong. She's wrong. I say they are close. Trump was lying, and the intelligence assessment was correct. They actually weren't building a nuclear weapon. And it was literally all just vibes, and he wanted to do the attack, again, because they want to do regime change, and Trump also believes war with Iran will make his poll numbers go up. The reason why we know that is because he used to say this about Obama, that Obama would attack Iran to make his poll numbers go up. And that's definitely one of the things leading Trump to do this. So it's like there's an amalgamation of all these incentives that came together to make Trump want to do this. First of all, he's just a fucking warmonger. Second of all, he thinks this will make his poll numbers go up. Third of all, Jeffrey Epstein had tremendous dirt on him, and Epstein was Mossad, which means the Israeli government has tremendous dirt on him. And so there could have been a little bit of arm twisting in the sense of, hey, you wouldn't want all that stuff to come out, would you? So, but bottom line, all the shit that they said about, Iran and nuclear weapons, nonsense. This is exactly like the Iraq war, when they did the propaganda buildup and claimed Saddam had weapons of mass destruction, and it turns out he absolutely did not. All right, so here comes the retaliation, y'all. Breaking, Iran's parliament approves closing the Strait of Hormuz. That was from Press TV, which is the Iranian state TV. Now, by the way, the final word on this doesn't rest with parliament. It rests with the Grand Ayatollah. But it looks like the Grand Ayatollah also approved this because 6 supertankers carrying crude have performed U-turns in the Strait of Hormuz in the last 24 hours. That's according to the Telegraph. There's also some speculation about them like scrambling GPSs in the region and just effectively shutting it down. So how important is that? How important is closing the Strait of Hormuz? Well, 20% of the world's oil moves through a strait just 21 miles wide. That's the Strait of Hormuz. A single blockade of Hormuz could spike oil to $150 plus overnight. Hormuz sees more oil traffic daily than the Panama and Suez canals combined. 35% of all seaborne liquid natural gas passes through Hormuz. U.S. Navy has deployed forces to Hormuz nearly every decade since the 1980s. It's the most militarized oil route on Earth. Hormuz is the only sea passage from the Persian Gulf to the open ocean. Iran has threatened military closure of the Strait of Hormuz over 10 times since 2000. Blockade of this route would result in near certain military action by the U.S., Israel, and others. So with Iran doing this, I told you guys, oh, this is just a limited strike and they'll go in and out. Absolute nonsense. This was just the first move. They did it knowing Iran would have to retaliate. And then, boom, Netanyahu gets the regime change war that he always wanted, and Trump does the regime change war. All right, more. U.S. has asked China to prevent Iran from closing the Strait of Hormuz and disrupting global oil flows, per CNBC. So here's the master planning from the Trump regime. China, can you please have Iran not close the Strait of Hormuz? Well, how'd that work out? And we're just getting started. That's not the end of Iran's retaliation. All right, more. A U.S. senior official who asked for anonymity acknowledged that the B-2 attack on the Fordo site did not destroy the heavily fortified facility, but severely damaged it. So this is an admission. Well, we didn't actually destroy Fordo. We didn't do that, but it goes deeper. Ready? Both things cannot be true. Trump's bragging about complete success, while Iran claims it evacuated its nuclear sites, moved the materials, and kept the scientists working. Iran concluded they would be bombed back in March. If this is a win, what does a failure look like? And then you literally have a video here of one of the Iranian hardliners who explains, I won't play it for you, of course, because it's not in English, but the Iranian hardliner explains that, oh, we've been moved our stuff out of there because it was very obvious they were going to attack us. Trump was effectively saying he was going to attack us. They were broadcasting it since like March. And so as soon as we had the slightest hunch that this was actually going to go down, bro, we got all of our stuff out of there immediately. So again, what a disastrous and colossal failure. This was all like a show attack, which was just the beginning of what they really want, which is a regime change. Senior officials tell the New York Times that they do not know the whereabouts of Iran's stockpile of near bomb-grade uranium. Let me repeat that. Senior officials from the Trump regime are telling the New York Times, yeah, we actually don't know where their uranium is, so... What? So then again, the public-facing posture of what they said they were doing, it has nothing to do with that at all. We warned you of that from the beginning. I told you the goal was regime change, and in fact, Seymour Hersh already reported that was already greenlit. A full regime change was greenlit. Everything else is just fucking kayfabe. All right, so Iran also decided, well, let's hit Israel some more after this attack. Iranian missile hits electric infrastructure in the south. Thousands temporarily lost power. So Iran launched another wave of attacks against Israel. How about this? Iranian retaliation against U.S. forces could come as soon as the next day or two. That's from Reuters. So in other words, U.S. military bases in the region, U.S. infrastructure in the region, that shit's about to get lit the fuck up, dog. That's what's about to happen. Russia jumps in. Russia is ready to help Iran, the Kremlin says. And that's to say nothing of China, the other close ally of Iran. So when I told you guys, you absolutely positively are flirting with World War III, I meant it. Because there is an alliance on the other side. And, Trump, by the way, at the same time, has also alienated virtually all of our allies. So what happens if there's a united front? What happens if it's China, Russia, and Iran, and they all stand up against this regime change war? What happens? I mean, we are run by absolute psychopaths. More. Smoke rises from the Shah-e-Ray, South Tehran, after an Israeli strike near the Sayed al-Shahada Revolutionary Guard Corps base. So here, let me show you. I think, yeah, we do have some videos here. So Israel is continuing to attack after the U.S. attacked the nuclear sites. And remember, I warned you, Seymour Hersh said they're not only going to go after the nuclear sites, they're also going to go after more top military officials, more top political officials. He even says they're going to go as far as to attack police stations in Tehran to try to collapse civil society. A university in Tehran was attacked by Israel today on Monday. So, yet again, Israel doing what they do best, which is attack hospitals, attack schools, attack innocent people. Israel's military is now warning Iranians in Tehran. Dear citizens of Tehran, in the coming days, the Israeli army will continue its attacks on military targets in the Tehran region. To protect your personal safety, we ask you to stay away from military bases and security institutions affiliated with the regime. Now, at the same time, what's the media doing? They are ramping up the propaganda and ramping up the fear-mongering. On CNN, the banner here says, Iran sleeper cells warning. When I told you we hopped in a time machine and went right back to 2002, I fucking meant it. Because we had, at the time, Bush came up with this stupid fucking, like, color-coded system to try to scare the shit out of people about Al-Qaeda and basically make them submit to whatever kind of warmongering the government wanted to do. All right, now, we're going to talk more about this later. But here's Fox News. Again, you would want a media to give you all the facts and all the information and tell you the chain of events. They're not doing any of that. They're not educating people. They're not giving people information. Instead, they're doing bullshit like this. Watch.
Yeah, so what we're looking at here is we're being told this is, I think, anywhere from just shy of 200 to 300 feet in depth. There are all kind of reports out there of 1,000 foot, but I think that's more propaganda. So what you end up doing is if you saw the movie, the latest Top Gun movie, eerily enough, this is that plot kind of coming to fruition in real life. It's not just one bomb. It'll be a bomb after a bomb to get through that penetration.
And just lastly, that's what you're talking about. Can penetrate up to 200 feet below the surface. And then, of course, we'll see it try and put the second one in there and go down in there. Yeah. Let's bring in David Burke, our Top Gun and former Top Gun instructor, retired U.S. Marine Corps officer. Now, David, I don't know how well we did that, but you know this better than anybody. Talk to us about, questions over whether or not this can successfully be done.
Joey Jones just crushed that explanation. You guys hit the nail on the head. So really well done. This absolutely can be done. There is not a cave in the world deep enough to defend itself against the American military if it needs to hit it. And you described the weapon system and the aircraft and the mating of that exactly right. Now, this is a hard problem to solve, but it is absolutely a solvable problem with this system.
So that was complete and utter rank propaganda. There's not a cave deep enough to protect themselves from the American military, and they're pretending like, bro, this is just like the movie Top Gun, bro, with how they're doing it, bro. Look at our illustration, bro. None of that, all that's bullshit. None of that is true. The things that they were claiming to set out to do, they did not achieve them at all, not even close. Here we go. Department of Homeland Security has issued National Terrorism Advisory for the United States. Quote, the ongoing Iran conflict is causing a heightened threat environment in the United States. I'm on the record of saying this before. Let me say it again. I would not at all be surprised to see a false flag attack that's blamed on Iran to try to make war fever much stronger in this country. Let me repeat that. I would not be surprised to see a false flag in this country that makes popular will for a long-term war with Iran skyrocket. So here I am again, take note, this is beforehand. I'm telling you about it, beforehand. And we know there are plenty of nefarious entities that would be more than willing to do some sort of a false flag attack in order to build that popular war for Iran. And the government is already trying to make you walk around mildly scared, looking over your shoulder for what? Persians? Iranians? Like, what are we talking about? And that's the other thing, is this sort of horseshit makes it much more difficult to be, for example, an Iranian American. To be somebody that might be confused for an Iranian American, somebody who's maybe Arab, for example, or Turkish or whatever. Now, the idea is people are going to, double take at brown people in this country and feel, oh, are they going to do a terror attack? I need to be vigilant. And this is what led to a massive increase in hate crime attacks during the war on terror, where Muslims in this country were ostracized and they were attacked. And so that's the real result of this garbage that we're talking about. Now, at the same time, former CIA Director John Brennan went on MSNBC and he confirmed the following. Iran has no nuclear weapons program. Iran posed no imminent threat to anyone. Iran was nowhere near producing a nuclear warhead, and Iran wouldn't even use one if in a first strike if it did. Those are all super basic facts. And I'm happy that somebody went on TV to say that because they're trying to scare the shit out of everybody into thinking quite the opposite. All right, now finally, let's end this segment with some polls. So when you ask the question, y'all, as direct and straightforward as possible. So when you ask the question, do you want America to be at war with Iran? Look at the numbers. No is 85%. Yes is a measly 5%. So when you ask it in the most direct, honest, forthright way, this is the result. Virtually nobody in this country sees themselves as pro-war. Nobody wants to be pro-war. Now, having said that, this is the power of propaganda, and this is the power of MAGA, the Trump cult. Because when you ask the question in a different way, ready? Do you approve or disapprove of the U.S. bombing nuclear sites in Iran? So in other words, this is framed more around like, hey, should they be allowed to get a nuke? When you phrase it that way, look at the results. Only 13% of Republicans, somewhat disapprove or strongly disapprove. So when you frame it from, should Iran be allowed to get a nuclear weapon, right? They say, oh, no, of course not. Do you approve or disapprove of the U.S. bombing nuclear sites in Iran? Only 13% of Republicans disapprove. So it flips and you get almost every Republican in the MAGA base goes, yeah, go bomb Iran, go attack them, of course. We covered a different poll as well, which added the qualifier, if necessary, should the U.S. attack Iran's nuclear sites? And when you add that qualifier and you ask Trump voters, it's over 70% that say yes, attack. This is the power of propaganda, endless propaganda on TV. This is the problem of the MAGA cult, is that as soon as Trump says, this is necessary, we have to do it, they go, oh, yes, sir, absolutely, sir, you're so right, sir. And here we are in yet another regime change war, illegal and offensive war in the Middle East. I don't want to fucking do this shit again. But the cat's already out of the bag. We're already deep in it. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.